Hey everyone, can you hear me yet? Let's see if this works any better. Hey everyone, can you hear me yet? Let's see if this works any better. Hey everyone. Okay, that's a lot better. So for some reason my mic's not working, but my headphone mic is, or my webcam mic is. So that's good. Let's test again. My headphone mic is. You're gonna hear a bit of double audio again. So that's good. Second. Let's test again. Cool. All right, so that sound is working. Let's test some computer sound, and we should get cracking soon. Cool. Cool. All right, so thank you for joining the ZBrush live stream this morning. My name is Aiman Akhtar. I am a 3D artist here in LA, and I've been doing a lot of 3D printing over the past 5 years. Large-scale sculpture, small-scale sculpture, toy prototyping, concept art, costumes. So you can see more about my work if you're interested at aiman3d.com. My latest project, which my wife and I built together, we're obsessing over these days, is fungosaurs, little dinosaur mushrooms. And you can follow that on fungosaurs.com, developing a AR mobile game, toys, and an animation pitch. And that's at fungosaurs on Instagram, at fungosaurs, Fungisaurs. Brief announcement, we're going to be at Jackalope, Pasadena this weekend, so if you're in town, come on, stop by, and you can see the fungosaurs in person. Look at, aren't they cute? All right. If you're interested in 3D printing and want to learn everything I know, I teach a class called 3D Printing for ZBrush Artists. It's online at Mold 3D Academy, and you're going to get 8 lectures going over slicing, keying, articulation, small-scale printing for miniatures, jewelry, all the way up to wearables and large-scale stuff. So I'll drop that link in Restream. And what is Restream? Restream is the chat here that lets me see what you guys are typing from Facebook, Twitch, YouTube, all of it. Amen. So here's the link to the ZBrush class. All right. What else? I'm a presenter for ZBrush Live. Been doing this for over a year now, almost. You can see the pixelogic.com ZBrush Live presenters and see all these awesome artists. Got Shane Olsen up top, Tomas Wittelbach, Ana Carolina Pereira, and there's mine right there. So you can click on the past broadcasts and schedules. And if you don't want to sign up for the class, you can see all the free stuff that I share. My schedule for November should be up soon. But here's some of my work. Here's the Fungosaurus toys, the prototypes. Let's see, do I have to go back? Do have to go back. Here's the 3D printed dress that I did for 3D World magazine back in a little while ago. Can't remember what year. And then this is my business, 3D Smiths, where I take people's ideas from 2D and then convert them to 3D. And then do some prints and prototypes for them. So all of my previous streams are on here. We've got 51 streams, probably a little bit more than that. I think they titled them strangely. You can see the 3D printed Joker mask I did for Halloween, another cowl I did for my friend Marco, some Fungosaurus character pitch prototyping, another mask of Hector for my friend Sean, keys and articulation IMM brush. Actually, I'll hit over to that right now. But yeah, that's all there. Pixelogic.com, ZBrush Live under my name, past broadcasts and schedules. This is a brush that I released not too long ago on Gumroad. It's only $10 if you want to check it out, support it, and I'll, give me feedback so I can make a new version. But it'll help you. You can test it out with this model that comes with it, and then you can get all these slicing and keying brushes to help you learn how to, in ZBrush, do keying and articulation. So I'll drop that link in Restream as well. Articulation brush. All right, and the most common question I get asked from people all the time is, what printers do I use? Since the stream is all about 3D printing, ideas to reality, I talk often about some idea that I have in my head, something I want to make, and then I figure out how to make it using ZBrush and then 3D printing as the tech. So the printers that I have are the Raise 3D N2 Plus. This is a 12-inch by 12-inch by 24-inch build volume, pretty big FDM, beefy FDM printer. So this is what I use for all my prototyping and, like, you know, non-expensive prints, but I can make them pretty big. The masks are all done in here. And then back there are the two Formlabs Form 2s. And those are for all the resin, high detail, toy prototyping, stuff like that. So those are the two printers that the three printers that I have. And scroll down over to some printers that I've been hearing about recently. The Frozen Transform is a resin printer that is not as expensive as the Formlabs, but promises to be a lot bigger. So that's something, if you're interested in resin printing, you might want to check out. Another one is the Piopoli Phenom. This is, I'm not sure about Frozen because I think they're a relatively new company, but Piopoli, this is their third printer, so it's a bit more seasoned. Also, relatively low price point, but you can get pretty big. The downside with any of these printers is there's going to be a lot of trial and error until you get things right. So the reason I recommend Formlabs is simply because they have a good support network. So they have the Form 3 printer. They've got the Form 3L coming out soon. But what helps is just having that forum, having people you can reach out to and be like, I don't know why this isn't printing. Help me. And they're pretty good about that. So yeah, those are the printers that I recommend. If you're interested in not the prosumer side, want to get something cheaper, just starting off in 3D printing, I've heard really great things about the Anycubic Photon for resin and the Creality CR10. I believe it's the CR10 for FDM. So they're relatively cheap printers that you can actually build yourself. There's a lot of reviews online. Look at this. This is Joel. Joel, the 3D printing nerd,
Joel, the 3D printing,
does a lot of awesome tutorials, and I met him in person. Really cool, nice guy. And you can check out all of the various printing printers. What am I trying to say? Check out the various YouTube printer reviews. There you go. And you can get recommendations and figure out what's right for you. Okay, so we got some music. I can play that and let me know if the music's ever too loud. Twitch is good. That is good. Any questions you have, just type them in the chat windows, whether you're on Facebook, YouTube, or anything else, and I will answer them as soon as I can. I'll keep this Restream chat window popped off and open on the side. So today, I'm going to be going over some of the new features in ZBrush 2020. That's what I want to do. Because I just downloaded ZBrush 2020 yesterday. It's a virgin new ZBrush. It's like bright and like shiny, and I'm going to mess it up. So we have this model by my friend Adam Nixon, and I'm going to slice and key it up. So I'll show you a bit of how to use my slicing keying articulation brush, installing it in ZBrush 2020 and testing it out, and some of the new features in ZBrush 2020. So thanks for joining for the stream, and like I said, any questions, just drop them in chat, and I'll get to them ASAP. All right. So we've got 2020 opened up right here. This is a fresh, clean install. This is what it looks like. Got Adam's model here. Really fun model of a really fun show. He's made some good decisions, something like a base to be slightly tilted so your character is looking up. Because imagine if it's printed like 6 inches tall, you're always almost always going to be looking downwards towards it. So it's good things to do subtle things like this, like tilt the base up. And there's a lot of natural seams in this model. So if I want to pop it off here, the legs is a good place to pop it off. So I could theoretically separate the base, separate the legs, separate the body, and the cape. That's an interesting one. I could figure out how to cut the cape into multiple pieces if I need to. We'll really figure out as we do this. You'll see my process for how I go about slicing and keying things up. And there's a few reasons to slice and key things up. If you're printing in resin, you want the best possible orientation and supports for each individual part. You could probably print this in one go on a Form 2 and it'll print fine because you've got, small to big, and it'll just add a lot of support. So there'll be supports going from inside of the cape up onto the model. And if you don't, if you print it upside down, something like this, you won't have supports growing in the cape, but all of your supports will be landing on the character's face and the pretty parts that you don't want to see it on. So that's the main reason that we slice key things up. The other main reason is if you want to print big, the printer build volume is not that big. It's about 7 inches or less. So if you want to print multiple pieces, or if you want to print larger than 7 inches, then you're going to have to slice and key your models up. All right, so first things first, let me just see if I can install my hotkeys and my Pixel Desire 3D onto it. Yes, perfect, just what I needed. Cool, happy to show you. Yeah, so I'll be showing basically once you get this brush, how do you install it, how do you bring it into ZBrush 2020, and how do you use it to start slicing and keying things up. I'm not going to focus on the articulation side of things today because we're not articulating this model. I'm going to focus on the right side of this, the keys that we'll be using just to put this together. Primarily the tapered square and the tapered Boolean, because those are my favorite to actually key things up with. But I'll pop on some music and I'll do a bit of troubleshooting first. So just load up your own ZBrush, have some fun sculpting and sculpt along. I'm going to play some music and I'm going to try to install my hotkeys and my interface from my previous iteration of ZBrush. Okay, that didn't take very long. All right, so I found my hotkeys, and I'm going to go to my preferences, hotkeys, and click load. So let's go over to the desktop where I tossed them. There's the hotkeys, startup hotkeys. Click open, and now in theory they should be working. So let's test them out. All right, so you can see the brushes switching up over here. I've got my hotkeys set so that C is the clay brush, V is move, N is the standard brush, I is inflate, D should be going to the damn standard brush, I think, because I don't really use the standard ZBrush D and Control D to divide and undivide. Let's see. Control C goes to clay tubes, good. All right, so right off the bat, not all the hotkeys are working. And I can show you how to make a new hotkey. So I'll go over to my damn standard brush. It's the brush that I use pretty often. Looks like right now it's set to S. Let's see if that's true. No, S is the draw size, so I'm not sure why it's saying it's set to S. And that's saying Control D. Let's see if that's right. Okay, it is set to Control D. Okay, so all my hotkeys are working. They're brought in properly. I just loaded them up, but that doesn't mean they're going to be saved. So I have to save and store them now. So I can save them into startup hotkeys for ZBrush 2020, or I can just click store and they'll be stored there. So for reference, if you're in a Windows machine, you can go to C, Program Files, Pixelogic, and you're going to try to grab stuff from 2019 and put it in 2020. So where you're going to put it inside Startup and whatever you want to fill in here. So right now it's got just the basic startup materials, and if I go to my 2019 startup, you can see that I've got, under materials, a lot more materials, just because I like having a lot of materials in my startup. And what this does is, when I go to my materials tab, I'll have a lot more in here than just these ones. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to copy all these. I'm going to navigate over to my ZBrush 2020, startup, materials, and I'll paste them in here. And I'll skip the ones that are already in there. Who knows, ZBrush may have updated them. And these won't show up in my ZBrush until I update or close and open it again. So it's all good. We're still in the middle of updates. So ZBrush 19, startup. I already grabbed the hotkeys. So this is where I was copying my hotkeys from. You see it opens up just like this. And you can have a lot more hotkeys. It's just whatever your preference is. Everyone works with ZBrush differently. There's also a user interface. So you can set up these custom configs, custom user interface. Let's see if it loads in as a, just as a config. I'll save this on my desktop and navigate over to ZBrush and go to config, load UI, and see what happens. All right, brought it in. Now you all can't see it because my screen isn't fully captured. Sorry for the glitching. But there, that's my custom UI. So this is all the brushes that I like to have visible up at the bottom. Let me move this thing. All the brushes that I like to have visible, the light is here on the bottom as well. I've got the brush depth. And then a couple of materials that I'm working on at any given time show up here. Z-remesher, auto groups, group split, merge down. I do a lot of 3D printing, so this kind of stuff is good to have accessible. But ZBrush 2020 does add a couple of new things, such as this silhouette up at the top left. That's fun. It's good to see because usually I'd actually go to my model and swap out, some flat color and then try to see what the silhouette is looking like. And obviously multiple subtools have different materials on them, so you're going to need to do that to multiple subtools. So this is nice that you can just see it there all the time. There's also this button at the top left or top right, which lets you snap. I guess it's like a gizmo. Most 3D applications have this, so it's good to see ZBrush kind of implementing it. And I hear you can switch this this model up so you can set up a custom model. Might do that at some point later. All right, so custom UI loaded in. I'm going to go to my config, and I can save it or I can store config, and now it'll save that custom UI. And every time I open ZBrush, it should open it. So let's do that. Let's close out of this right now, and let's open ZBrush 2020 again. Let me pin this to my taskbar. There it is. Put it right in the center and tap that. All right, so here we go. ZBrush 2020, fresh, clean install, and I've added my hotkeys and my custom UI. When you pop it open, it's going to take you to this page that says what all the new features are. So let's go over some of those. Some basic stuff that I like to do for streaming is I kill the range and I double the size of my canvas and click AA half. This is just anti-aliases, so when I do stream something, it's not so rasterized along the edges. So I'm going to go to my load tool, and actually no, it's not a load. I believe Adam sent this to me as a project. So I'm going to navigate over to my downloads. There's the file from Adam Nixon, the Darkwing Duck model that he made. All right, so yeah, you can actually tell right here how there's a little bit of crispiness along the edge, the rasterization. That's why I like to go to my document, kill the range, double, click AA half, and then draw it back on. Switch over to skin shade material or Sculpt. I like Sculpt. It's a great material that lets you see everything. Sculpt is it's RS Sculpt, so that's the Ralph Stumpf material. I believe you can download this from the ZBrush material library. Yeah, I think it's there. All right, I'll just pop this down into the corner, and let's take a look at some of the new features in ZBrush. All right. Oh, Pixel Desire 3D saying he got the keys the other day, haven't had a chance to use them yet. Thank you for the support. I'm glad you got the keys, and you'll get a preview of how to use them right now. Charlie Barta joining in from Facebook. Hey, from the land of Disney. And we got Nikita Brula. Do you show the wall thickness visualizer? Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking forward to playing with it very shortly in the stream. Okay, so let's just go over what are the new features in ZBrush 2020, and let's see about playing with some of them. So there's a demo. ZBrush guys have been really good about showing everything. They showed a lot of these features, or previewed them at the ZBrush Summit, which I attended here in LA not too long ago. But now they're putting them out, and they're pretty good about demoing them. I think Paul Solomon and Joseph Drust all did streams about the new ZBrush 2020 features. So you can look those up, ZBrush 2020 streams, and they should have those saved. All right, so we got a few new ones here. Sculpt and Paint in Morph UV. So this is pretty dope if you're bringing in assets from Marvelous Designer, or if you model your own clothing, or really anything that has UVs. You get to sculpt on the UV, which is amazing. This is dope because it lets you avoid the work of trying to figure out how to have a line stretch across the arms and the body here, for example, at the same time. And that's amazing. I'm not going to play with that because I don't have a model that's UV'd right now. But you can see it in action, and just by clicking on the startup window that pops up when ZBrush loads. And if you don't have that startup window, if you already closed it out, you can see the pixology.com features. So I'll drop that in the restream chat if you want to follow along. Next up, we got Extractor Brushes. So these brushes let you copy, basically clone stamp what you see in 3D and brush them somewhere else. That's really powerful, and that's dope. I've never imagined that would be able to work in 3D. But you basically sample an area and then use that as your brush on the fly. And that's really powerful. Once you get one part of your model looking right, you can copy and paste all over. History Recall lets you undo just a portion of your sculpt without losing everything. And so that's pretty cool. You can, a slider is a good way to visualize it, because in theory you can just, like a morph brush kind of thing, undo only parts of your model. You can also use it in the other direction, redo history from one part of the model to another. That's really interesting. So regardless of topology, if you worked on one part of your model and you're like, oh, I really like these details, I want them over here, you should be able to do that. That's freaking fascinating. Move with infinite depth. Okay, so we've already got a few different move brushes in ZBrush. You've got let's actually check them out. Right now we've got, if we go to M, move elastic, move topological, and just standard move. There's also this new one, move infinite depth. So this is the new brush. Let's see, what does it do? After your brush, alter your brush to apply details to anything that is directly in line with the brush cursor. For example, add volume to the front and hind legs of a dog, or more smooth several portics and multiple individual meshes without applying a mask. So I'm guessing this works on multiple subtools, and I'm trying to understand what this means. Infinite depth option can be applied to several brushes, so they've added a new feature called infinite depth, and they've applied it to a move brush so we can test it out on there. Alter your brush to apply details to anything that is directly in line with the brush cursor. So let's see what it does. So now I've got this model that's made up of multiple subtools. So right now I've got just the body selected. I've got my move infinite depth brush here, and it looks like I can move the body. So it looks like it's only moving the body, so it doesn't affect multiple subtools. But it is somehow set to work on, I'm really not sure how this is extra powerful. It's working like a pretty standard move brush for any part that I'm on. Oh, look at that. Oh, I see what it's doing. Okay, there we go. So a standard move brush, if I go to my standard MOVE move brush, if I select this part of the mesh and pull it forward, it's only pulling forward that part of the mesh. Now if I select my move infinite depth brush, same exact stroke, but it's moving. I just gave Darkwing Duck boops. It's moving not just what's in front of my cursor on one end, it's moving what's on the back side of my cursor on the back end. That's interesting. I don't know when I'm going to use this, but this seems really interesting. So I can be on any part of my model, and as long as it's overlapping, it's going to pick multiple parts of the model and apply that effect along them. So this is fun. I can like try to experiment with this and see what it lets me do. So there, I moved the toe, the shirt, and the beak out at the same time. Interesting. I don't know what I'm going to do with this, but this seems fun. Pixel Desire saying it moves the verts from front to rear. Before the rear verts had a lower strength applied. Yeah, definitely. So it changes up the strength on those moves. So I see. So depending on where you're looking at the camera, it'll affect multiple pieces of the same model. That's fun. Okay. Next up, we got you can pick just one color. Texture adjust color by polypaint and adjust by color. Now this is really fun. This is powerful. From what I could see in the demo that they did back at the ZBrush Summit, this lets you adjust your polypaint color on the fly. So once you've done your poly painting, you can go back and make specific adjustments to specific color selections. We may do this in a bit on the same Darkwing Duck model once we have. Actually, maybe I should just open a different model that has poly paint already applied onto it to just see what how this works. All right, let's see. Let's switch this up. Let's load a model which has poly paint color data. Actually, there should be some in Lightbox. Go to Tool. And got ZSketch, got some projects in here, documents. Did they get rid of that giant dude? Who's the giant dude I'm talking about? You know the one, the guy from Ninja Scroll, the one that's usually in the tool palette. May have gotten rid of some stuff. Alright, I'll just load a different tool that I have with Polypaint on it. See if I can bring in one of my fungusaurs. Okay, I thought this one did have poly paint, but I don't see it. Why not? That's V1D. Oh, that's correct. Should have it. Let's go to a different one. Not 3D prints. I want to go to the designed. This is going to take a sec because I believe most of my models that are for that have poly paint on them are not the final models. All right, here we go. So here's a Fungusaur, the Paradots, and it's got poly paint on it, and we can mess around with it. It's made of multiple subtools here as well, so we could try to go to M for material and color fill object. So now all of it has the same skin shade material, and still made up of multiple pieces. Let's do a test on both. So say if I wanted to start adjusting these colors, how do I go about changing them without altering everything? Oh, so earthquake, that's the one, earthquake. I should know earthquake. This is like a ZBrush institution now. It's under demo projects, gotcha. So I have to go under tool, projects, demo projects, there it is. All right, doesn't matter. I've already got my Fungusaur open. Now I know where earthquake lives. Okay, so what I want to play with these new texture adjust by color and poly paint adjust by color features. There is no texture on this character, so let's do the poly paint adjust. Click on the watch demo and see if we can figure out where the basics are. Interactively adjust poly paint colors. Looks like there is a adjust colors window, and then you can apply those. And done. Ha! Wonderful demo. Wonderful, very, very fast demo. Okay, so let's see if we can find adjust by color. Looks like texture doesn't have it. Let's see if it's under the tool palette. Tool, poly paint, adjust colors. Easy to find. So tool, poly paint, adjust colors. There's our paradox popped up in a new window. Doesn't look like this window has perspective. And all of the colors look really weird. Not sure why that is. I'm going to press cancel. I wonder why there's this weird color thing happening, because it doesn't seem to be happening in there. So it might be a holdover from the custom UI that I imported, and it's trying to figure out the color, the best color. Let's see. I know there's a way to adjust the various different colors in ZBrush. I don't want to change my user interface layout here, but up at the top, user interface colors. There we go. So we can flip through and select a different user interface color scheme. Just something that makes it a bit more unified. There we go. All right, that one works. At least I can see all the text better. So now let's adjust without doing any picking first. Let's just see what happens if we adjust the hue. So we can make large-scale hue adjustments, adjust the saturation, adjust the intensity. That's cool. Just made him neon. Can change the RGB intensity. So let's zero these out first so we can see what each of these controls is doing. So basically this just controls the RGB that's currently on there, and you can change up the intensity, so bumping up the saturation, red intensity, green intensity, and blue intensity. So blue intensity should only affect the eyes. No, it affects everything. So this is not picking by color. This affects, these ones at the bottom make large overall changes. Cool. Got the contrast. Ooh. So we can pump the contrast or dim it down. That's cool. You can actually affect contrast on a per color basis too. And gamma. All right, so the menus at the bottom here make large overall changes. What did I do? Okay. And looks like this is for the tint. So I can tint the whole thing a specific color that I like. That's the tint slider that's keyed into this window that's on the bottom. Looks pretty basic so far. Everyone's following along. No questions on Restream, yes? All right, dope. Joanne's saying it's like Photoshop for polypaint. Exactly. It's pretty powerful. This is nuts. And we haven't really even touched upon the most powerful stuff, which is that I should be able to pick the colors that I want to adjust. So hold on. Let's turn this off. Let's pick only that dark red color. Then we can pick only the lighter red color, or it's like almost orange. It's almost like pinkish. And we can pick just the blue of the eyes. What others? The white. We've got white here. That is the white of the... This might be a bit tougher because there's white in the eyes and there's white on the... I don't know, what do you call those? The spots? The white spots? And you can adjust the tolerance. So that's good. So I can say only want the white there, or I want as much white as possible. All right, I'll just leave it at like the standard 30 tolerance for now. Adjust the tolerance on the blue. And then this gray area, I'm guessing, is the stuff that I haven't picked a color for yet. There we go. So now I've got colors for just about everything on this model. I don't see any masks. Okay, so now let's try adjusting only these specific colors. So I'm going to go from the dark red. Let's go across the spectrum. Let's see, inverse mask, overwrite. Strange. It lets me, it pops up a window, but it closes it really quickly. Am I doing this wrong? No, this is the color picker, so we already established that. Wonder why this window doesn't stay open very long. Basically, it's just showing me what color I've picked. But how do I change it now? How do I adjust only that specific color? Say I wanted to change this color. I'm guessing I can mask everything else and make these changes only on that color. Got it. Yeah. So what this does is the color picker masks different poly paint that's on your model in different places. You can turn off all the other ones, only focus on one mask at a time. You can change that tolerance on the fly. That's cool. I see, I see. Let's inverse that mask. Okay. So basically the way I see this, it's still only allowing you to do one at a time, right? Unless there's a way to mask this one. Let's inverse this again. Inverse mask. Mask it. Now it still seems like it's really handy, but it's only letting me do one at a time. I want to be able to, okay, this one's locked, now move on to this one. Okay, so in theory, if I just turn it on and off, nah, but it doesn't stick, it doesn't apply that, you know? Let's see. Because if it's the large-scale hue changes that I'm making, it should allow me to do those on a bit by bit basis so I can see it over here. Say if I just wanted to do that and I click OK, that becomes applied to my mesh. I can drop the mask and we can see how it's applied that change. Maybe go back into adjust colors. No, it loses all of the information that was there before. Alright, so I got to play with this a bit more because I think it's more powerful than my feeble mind is able to use it right now. Because in theory, I should be able to select multiple parts of this mesh and tweak all of them simultaneously. Or tweak all of them individually, not simultaneously. For example, if I wanted to change this white to a green, I could tint it, and I could up the saturation. And now I want to change the red to yellow. I should be able to save this, apply this onto the white, and then go up and then do the next one, and then do the next one, then do the next one. I don't see a way to do that. But, you know, this is something that's basically bringing in a substance feature into Polypaint or a Photoshop feature. So I'm guessing they're still working out the kinks, but I'm going to go through their demos and actually properly understand everything. But this stream is just going to give you a little taste of these features. So there's the one we just went through, which is Polypaint Adjust by Color. Looks like, you know, at least in this demo workflow, they're doing it one at a time, not all of them at a time. But it's good to have the ability to do multiples at a time. All right, next up, Ready, Set, Analyze, and Print. So these are relevant to me a lot because I do a lot of 3D printing. So we're going to go to Wall Thickness, Real-Time Draft Analysis, and Surface Area Calculations. So this is about preparing models for production, and this is something that has been sorely lacking in ZBrush. Scale has always been an issue in ZBrush, and then being able to test these things now, this is fun. This is cool. So wall thickness, let's see the demo. Calculate wall thickness, identify troublesome areas, and then fix those on the fly. That's cool. So you can do it on a hollow mesh too. Now I'm assuming this is presuming that we've got the right scale on our model already. Real-time draft analysis. This is powerful because it's going to let you see which parts of your model immediately you can fix. Cam silhouette and cam view. Okay, so what is draft analysis? So draft analysis is basically analyzing from the direction of a specific camera how a model would have an overhang. And we want to avoid overhangs as much as possible when it comes to 3D printing in certain technologies. Let's see. Real-time draft analysis. Yake. How do I turn the sound off? Why does this one not have a volume slider? That's silly. Alright, I'm not going to play it because it's too loud. Calculate surface area no matter how the model will eventually be used. Find the surface area and volume. Bounding box size, mesh volume, and surface area at the same time. You can check for watertight integrity. Cam silhouette and cam view. This we saw, right? It basically lets you know the orientation of your model. Real-time silhouette view. The zoo full of like characters that you could start sculpting on right away, made out of Z-spheres. The deco curve brush. That's cool. Decorative. All right, dope. So there's a lot of fun features. I want to play with the wall thickness, the real-time draft analysis, and the surface area. So let's see. Where is more info about these these items. Learn more at pixelogic.com. All right, so I'm not going to do that. I'm going to close out of here, back into ZBrush. You can go back to our dark-winged duck model, and we're going to start slicing and keying it up with the brush that I have. And then when it's at a better point where we're starting to figure out scale, then we'll start messing with the wall thickness and the draft analysis and stuff. So then, let's see about going back to a different user interface color. There's so many options. I like a slightly darker color, like this. All right, so we've got Adam's model here. It's looking good. Let's turn things on and off so we can see what kind of parts we're working with. So we've got a hat. The hat is on its own. We may want to print the hat separately so that we can get the best orientation on it. But, I think we'll be fine with printing the hat and the head together. We've got the cape. So let me just do this in solo mode. We've got a cape. So part of this cape needs to be either meshed onto the body, or if we're going to do it like this, we're going to need to figure out how we're going to have it fit into the body. I have no idea what this is. Looks like it's the eyes. Yeah, those are the eyes. All right, so I'm going to start by just merging some pieces together. I'm going to go to Geometry, Delete Lower, and I'll go to Subtool, Merge Down. Always okay. Merge down again. Get those eyes in there. What are these parts? They seem to be visible. The pupils and the buttons. Merge those, and there's the base. Okay, so we've got the base, we've got the body, and we've got the cape. I'll go to my skin shade, and let me put some music on as I'm doing this. Oh, that was fun. We brought everything back onto screen. All right, so I'm going to do some basic color coding so we can see what we're working on. So the cape I'll color red, the base I'll color green, and the body I'll color, I don't know, bluish. All right, so there we go. So far we've got a model in 3 parts. Now to key this up, I'm pretty sure I'm going to need to pop the head off on its own. Maybe merge this cape with the upper part of the body and create a really nice simple seam line. So we'll have this seam kind of going over everything. Don't know if I like it intersecting with the buttons, so either I'm going to raise the cape or I'll lower the buttons. I can use my Move Topological tool to do this. MT. Nope, it's not MT. That would be too logical. It's MV for some reason. Okay. I could also conversely just select or mask my buttons. It should let me do it one at a time. And then I can just move them. That way I don't need to worry about my brush size being inaccurate. Now a little bit of overlap does look good, so I don't want to completely, you never want to change the appeal of the model. So I'll keep a little bit of the overlap. We just have to find a way for this cape to get on top of it. right now creating this overhang, making it a bit more obvious. Making the seams a bit stronger. Whenever you're 3D printing something, you want to do that because it might get a little bit more blurred out once you get to detail washes out. That's what I'm trying to say. So you want to reinforce some of these lines. You can solo whenever you need to. And I'm going to slice and key this up as if it's printing, I don't know, it's like 7 inches tall. So we're going to break it into a few more pieces so we can get the best orientation. So we've got a really great natural seam right there at the legs. We've got another one up here at the arm, so we could utilize that. So I'm going to just start coloring this model based on what I think we could do. Not really caring about making this perfect right now. First things first is just the plan. So the head, I'll make all purple. We have to decide if we're printing the lower body all the way up to here in one go, which I think we could. In which case, are we slicing the arms off and having them print with the cape? It's not a bad idea. Let's see. I'm going to go to my masking, mask lasso tool. Trying to mask off that head. Trying to get all the parts of the head nice and masked. Okay, there we go. Wait, there. Now let's think about what if we applied the key right at the armpit. That way the arms can be printed along with the cape. We've got a nice natural seam here in the armpit. And whenever possible, we want to try to hide our seams. I think I may have completely gotten rid of my focal shift. That's what I did, yeah. All right. So we could do something like this. The head and hat are on their own, separately. Then we've got and we could even take it a step further and make the hat be its own piece that keys on. You know, I might do that. Might as well, because it's already separate. It's very easy to, let's make it yellow, bright yellow. So we can have the hat be its own piece, we can have the head be its own piece, all the way down to the neck, including the scarf. maybe not. May want to add the scarf to this cape because we've got such a nice natural seam right there, the neckline too. I don't know. This is a pretty good one. Base will be on its own. And now the largest part is this cape. And I have a feeling this cape will not print. Whoa. I have a feeling this cape will not print in one go if we want to, if we add the arms to it, and then if we want to print this relatively big, this won't work in one go. What in the world? Why did the hat not color the top of it yellow? I guess it's a different poly group. You fill object on that. No. Strange. For some reason, the hat has a different poly group. The top of the hat has a different poly group. There we go. It must have been a mesh extract thing. There we go. So now, the point is this cape. The cape is too big, so we probably need to slice this cape and do a few more pieces as well. Now, what is the best place to do that? Now, this is a pretty good seam right here down the center. So we can look at the damn standard brush and be like, yeah, that's one place that you could have a very clear seam right there. And none's the wiser. So let's do a little color change. Let's make it green. We already used green for the base. Let's use a different type of red. Let's use orange. There we go. Keep it in the same family. And we could split this cape into two pieces, the left and the right. And we'll find another seam that bridges that gap. Okay. So let's see on the back side now. One piece can be bigger. That's pretty normal. What we need to do is figure out where we're doing the seam. And that often depends on the flow of these wrinkles. Excuse me. Okay, so let's take a look at just the cape for a second. And let's see how we can key this apart. Now we could go right down the center, which aesthetically doesn't look good, but it works. It's just right down the center, but then you have a very clear seam that's not hidden. So I don't like that. I would like to hide this whenever possible, the seam. So where can we do it? I say the best bet is to do a little bit more sculpting on here to create a better hiding spot. The collar, that I can't really avoid cutting a little bit somehow, because it's gonna have to either overlap or have a one, partially visible seam. Adam just messaged me. There's a divot in the arm that he'd like to fix. Let's see. Back of the cape by the left arm. So left arm. So I'm guessing that's this divot right here. No worries, mate. I can try to fix it for you. I'm gonna do some sculpting adjustment on this slightly anyway, just to make it flow a bit better. But yeah, we'll have you review everything before we print. All right, so let's go back to the painting. There's a nice wrinkle line coming right here, which Adam's done, which I could build upon. going to go in with my damn standard brush, and same thing as I did before. Just going to maybe add some more to my lazy mouse and make his creases a bit stronger, just so we don't get washed out, for one thing, when we print, and secondarily they'll set the tone for the type of fabric this is. That's what creases do. They let you know what kind of fabric it is. That's the whole purpose of using wrinkles or sculpting wrinkles. It informs the viewer of the sculpt, kind of tells the story as to what kind of fabric it is. So if I were to add like lots and lots of wrinkles, you're like, okay, this is a different type of fabric. If I were to add sharp wrinkles, you're like, okay, that's clearly a different kind of fabric. I do like to add some sharper ones though. If they, excuse me, if they, work. You don't want to just add wrinkles for the sake of adding wrinkles. It has to inform the shape that's underneath. And Adam's done a great job here of these wrinkles would actually flow with the cape. Naturalistic, I guess, is the word I'm looking for. All right. So here's one of those. And have it go all the way down to the bottom. And we could also have it flow over here. There would naturally be more wrinkles in the center of a cape like this that's billowing out like this. So one thing I always have to explain to people is that when you're 3D printing a model, you have to think like an engineer. So you always have to keep it in mind, things like shape and balance and form. You never want to do like two strokes in parallel like that. That's a no-go for anything organic. And you want to avoid symmetry whenever possible too. And a good rule is where you don't need detail, don't really add it, because it's not really going to be visible anyway. That said, I'm going to add a little bit more detail here at the bottom. Not too much, just a little bit. It's enough that it all makes sense. I'm adding some inflated ones as well as some deflated ones. All coming out of the central points. So in this case, his wrinkles are coming from the point where his hands are grabbing onto that cloth. So they all should start or be affected by that point. Want to make sure there's not any overlap between that cheek and the cape. So I'm just going to increase a little bit of the space there. Make sure to grab it from forward. Trying to keep it appealing, trying to just use what Adam's got whenever possible. Only making minimal changes that serve the print. Mostly with my move tool, my damp standard tool. There we go. Little parts of the model like slight small lumps. So I'm trying to get rid of those as well. It's natural when you're sculpting to have little bumps like that. You can also come into these creases and add a little bit of a ledge. Even if this isn't how they would be in real life, it adds, once you print it, just a little bit more visibility. Okay, got some questions on Restream, so let me address those. I'm going to first save this file. I just generally save the tools. That's my preference. So I'll go to New Folder, Adam Darkwing Duck. Call it DD1. All right, so questions on Restream. Let me lower the volume of this music. Assassinated says, I can't believe I taught Darkwing Duck when you were zoomed in, and you were right. Yes, thank you for tuning into the ZBrush stream. Those of you joining just now, I'm going to show the process of slicing and keying this Darkwing Duck model by my friend Adam Nixon. And we're going to use a brush that I've developed here. Let's see if I can find it. There it is. The Keys and Articulation IMM brush. You can pick that up on Gumroad. I'll share the link again at the end of the stream. Okay, questions? Let's see. Are you using materials strictly from ZBrush, or do you import them over from some other program? This is James Hanlon from Facebook. My workflow is Blender to ZBrush to Cinema 4D. Are you on a only ZBrush pipeline? No, I don't believe in only one software pipeline. I use Maya, Modo, Cinema 4D, Max when necessary, Photoshop. So as far as materials in ZBrush go, though, you want to try to have ZBrush materials. That's what this whole area is about. And you can make your own materials. Material editor is really powerful. You can pick any material, go into the modifiers, and start tweaking. And if you watch Joseph Drust or Paul in this menu, it's nuts. They can do crazy things. But you could also just go to materials that other people have made. So ZBrush material library. Matte caps. There we go. So they're called matte caps in ZBrush, and there's all these different types. So there's effect ones, something like, hard, like Fire Demon here. Or we got Coral or Ghoul. We got all sorts of different stone materials, earth tones, like this wood one. And if you want, you can just download all of these. So these are all available in Pixelogic's MatCap library. I don't think you need to do anything special to get it. There, you just click on that download now button and it'll download that material. So the one that I was using was RS Sculpey. I believe Lay is a similar one. RS Oil Clay, Bone, New Skin, by David Igos, by Chris Baker, David Jogos. All right. I feel like it was in one of these, the RF stump. You may be able to look it up. There it is, RS Sculpt. Okay, so RS Sculpt, you can just click on that. That's the material I'm using. Just click download now. I'll drop that link inside the here, there. I'll drop that link inside of the chat window. All right, another question. Let's see. Oh no, that was just Twitch replying. Hat Jams replying to the materials question. Thank you for that. RS Sculpt is an import, so yeah. It's not from newer version of ZBrush. It's from the ZBrush Matcap library. There's a bunch of materials here. There's more materials online, like if you go to Gumroad or if you go to Bad King or some other sites. Let's see if I can find some in here. Is there a search bar in Gumroad? Oh, it's logged me in right now. That's just showing all the sales that I've been having. This is good. So you guys really like this brush that I came up with. So that's, you know, I'm glad to see that. So the brush here, keys an IMM brush. Let's actually start using it now and start keying up Adam's model, because we've gotten far enough to where we have, let's see, brush keys. We've gotten far enough along with the planning phase that we can start slicing and keying now. So let's start with the easy part. The base is on its own, so let's start by keying these feet into the base. Now we could do it one of two ways. We could have a key rising up out of the base that the legs get onto, but in this case the top of the feet are relatively thin, so what I think I want to do is have the feet key onto the base. So first things first, I want to make sure I have a nice big flat area, as much surface area as you can get onto the base, the better. Go in with the inflate brush and inflate the top of that a little bit. You want to add a little bit of inflation right along the edge. Subtle, but helpful. There we go. Smooth that out. And I can do the same thing here. Just push these creases in a bit deeper so they'll read when you print. I usually overdo it and then I smooth out. There we go. Just tap it smooth everywhere. Tap, tap, tap. Again, address the lumpiness that I probably just created a little bit by inflating. So that's the thing about 3D modeling. You've got to always be looking at your model from all angles. You can't just be satisfied. All right, so that's a really good, like, big surface area of that foot on the ground. This foot, however, is not much at all. So we want to try to add at least the full toe length on there. Just gonna tweak the shape a little bit just so there is more surface area on the ground. Got to keep it looking like a little duck flap. Duck flappy feet. Floppy. Did anyone play that Floppy Bird game? Flappy Bird? God, that was such a popular viral game for being such a basic retro game, and it was so hard. At least it was hard for me. All right, so we added just a little bit more surface area on the ground there. I'm gonna hit it with inflate as well. Just pull in a little bit more. this is the joint that all of this is going to stand up on. So just these two legs are going to have to hold up the weight of the entire cape and the body and the head. So we want to make sure that those are as beefy as we can make them. Even the legs, because the ankles right now are probably going to be the weakest point of this whole sculpt. Not just as an engineer. It's got nothing to do with the sculpt quality. It's got everything to do with will it break. All right, I think that's enough surface area on the ground. I've seen much less supported models still work well, but that's a good amount. Next, I'm going to go to my brush, which is not in here, so I've got to load that brush. Give me a second. Let me play some music, and I'll go find my brush. Okay, found my brush, so I'm going to load it into ZBrush now. Okay, so here we go. Back in ZBrush, I'm going to go to my preferences, or no, you know what, this is a brush. So I can just click on my menu here, click Load Brush. I think I threw it on the desktop. That's how it's going to download for you. Keys Articulation Brush V1. Open that up. So there's all the different brush presets. So you can use a hinge Boolean, a ball joint Boolean. There's also just without the Boolean option. There's the tapers, there's the snap-in pins, and tapered square. So most of the time when I'm keying, I use the tapered square. And this case, we don't need a Boolean right here. We need just a simple tapered square. So I'll navigate over there. I turn perspective off when I'm doing keying, so your call, but this is my preference. And I'm going to navigate over to here, and I'll draw it down. So there you can see what's going on if I press the transparent button, and you can adjust the scale, you can adjust the height of it, and I want it to go pretty deep because it needs to hold the weight of everything up. You can move the whole thing over as well and stretch it out a bit too. Alright, so there we go. So there's our key that we're going to apply into the foot. For now, I'm just going to split unmasked points, and it's made up of two parts. So if I click on auto groups and then do a group split, it should split it into two pieces. Hard for you to tell over there, but there you can see there's two pieces. One's the inside, one's the outside. So I'll name the outside as cutter, and I'll name the inside as key. And we're going to merge the key onto this foot, but I'm not going to do that just yet. First thing I want to do is duplicate that base bring that up higher. And I'm going to use that base as a cutter for my foot. Now let's see, what do I mean by that? Right now, if I turn the base on, I want that, there's a little bit of interpenetration. You see that interpenetration? We don't want that. So since we want it flat on flat, I mean, we could get interpenetration. It might add like a bit of a stronger key there if we had more of a, but it'll look less clean. So I'm gonna use the base as a cutter by just clicking on that little half moon icon, go to my render booleans and enable live boolean. Now if I go to my mesh and I turn off transparency mode and the other base, you can see what's happening. It's cutting the bottom of that and making it completely flat. And that's where we can see the surface area again. The surface area of point-to-point connection. So I'm going to apply that. It's kind of hard to apply directly unless I start dynameshing multiple pieces. In this case, I could just do something like go to my booleans and say make Boolean Mesh. And let's see what that does. It should pop it off as a separate mesh. It's thinking about it. Looks like it's done. There it is. It's basically created a new tool. Now Boolean is really powerful because I don't need to dynamesh the whole mesh and separate the different pieces. It leaves most of the topology alone. It only analyzes the topology where it needs to, and then merges and works with the parts that you need. So I'm going to go back to my mesh now, turn off the body, append on that mesh, go to solo. I'm going to hide the parts that I don't want to worry about. Like the cape doesn't need to be part of this equation. Oh yeah, you can see how Boolean actually merges multiple pieces together. So it merged all of the visible pieces together into one. So I don't want that. It's too complicated to try to clean up and deal with. So I'm just going to delete that. Wait, did I just delete my main mesh? Oh god, I hate it when I do that. Because there's no undo button for delete. Oh no, there it is. There's the base. Good. I scared myself for a second. That's one thing ZBrush should add is an undo button for delete. It deleted my subtool. Okay, I'm going to save this again, just in case. And what we want to do is start dynameshing our pieces so we can only affect the places we want. In this case, I want the hat to be on its own. So what we're going to do is select that hat on the top of that, because I know that's click auto groups. There we go. So now the hat's one piece. I'll split hidden. So now we can rename and say hat. Now this body has the buttons on it. The buttons seem to be in a good place. They're not intersecting strangely. I can make an effort to just tweak them a little bit, move them out, rotate them a bit. There we go. That's looking good. The other one, same thing. I like to just do a mask selection. Tap on my normal surface, move it out as needed, and rotate as needed. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with the body, the way just the body's looking, and the hat is separate now. And we'll key the head to be separate too. But while we've got just the body here, I'm going to click Dynamesh and make all of that just one mesh. Might have a little bit more cleanup to do once that's done, but let's go ahead and start. So go to Geometry, Dynamesh, and click Dynamesh. Let's see what happens with 128 resolution. 128 resolution is way too low. We can see it does Dynamesh everything together, but everything loses all its detail. So let's crank this up to 600 first and see what that does. Alright, 600 let us keep most of the detail, and it's about 2 million polys. I'm actually cool with this because I can come in and adjust it as needed. So 2 million polys is a good amount of Dynamesh. Now that we've got all of these pieces, now I can focus on just Boolean cutting my base out from my feet, and I can do it same way. I could just use the make Boolean Mesh, or in this case, since I've started Dynameshing, I can Dynamesh the two pieces that I want only, and just do it manually, not rely on the make Boolean Mesh. So there we go. This is a Dynamesh sub. This is the body, and I can merge down and then click just my simple Dynamesh, and it should cut that base from my feet. All right, there we go. So now it cut the base from my feet so that my feet are now flat, and we can see they're all unified in one. To make it simpler, I can go to my standard brush and make sure the color is all unified. Then we're going to go to our keys. We've got the cutter there, and we've got the key. So we're going to go to the key, and we want to make sure that this key goes all the way up into the foot. We don't want that gap there. So we're just going to move it up, and there's the key. Let's merge that into our feet. So I'll go to merge down there, and I can Dynamesh that together. And same thing, I'll just color it all the same color, so we're aware it's all the same model. So now I've got the key in the foot, but that key still isn't out of the base. So I'm going to go to my base now and use that as a cutter. And make sure that I have enough of it out. Hold shift as you do this. There we go. We just need it peeking out a little bit so that when we do the cutting, now you can see the cut in the base. So the base here, I can start by Dynameshing it first. 600 is my lucky number in this scene. Click Dynamesh. Hissel plays on Twitch saying, "Damn, you lost hella weight, brother." Well, thank you for noticing. I don't think I did at all. I'm 170 right now. I'm usually 165, so I feel like I may have lost weight from up here, and it's just migrating down to my gut. All right, so there we go. Cutting. I'll go to this cutter and Dynamesh that too. I like to have everything Dynamesh before I use the cutting, just because it works better for me. Merge down, geometry, Dynamesh, and it'll use that. It'll basically remove that cutter from the base. There we go. So now we've got one leg done. Let's do the same thing for the other leg. Navigate over. Go to my key, and this key actually could be wider too. There's no reason for it to be this thin, but there's a lot of surface area here, so I'm not worried about it. Let's make this key wider because we don't have much space there. I'm going to go back to my keys brush. Make sure the brush depth is a bit lower, so I bury it in. Go to my move, and I'll make it a bit wider. Not that wide. Yeah, about that wide. Increase the depth so it goes deep into the base. That's a good thing. We want that. But we don't want it sticking out at the top either. Alright, it's feeling right. Move the whole thing over in a bit. Just equidistant from all the sides. And then we'll do the same thing. Let me change the color here again because it's hard to see my menu. Split unmasked points. Now that's made of 2 groups, so I'll click polygroups. Let's see. Thought it's here. Polygroups, there it is, polygroups. I'll click auto groups and I'll do group split. Under subtool, group split. Now I've got all these in my menu up at the bottom of the screen here that you guys can't see, just to make it quicker for me, so I don't have to look through the menus. All right, so got some new people joining in the stream, so I'm gonna zoom out and let people see what I'm working on. So this is a Darkwing Duck by my friend Adam Nixon, and what I'm going to do is slice and key this up for 3D print using this keys and articulation brush that I've developed. So that's what I'm doing right now. Okay. Phil Barracks saying hi all. Thanks for joining just in time. Absolutely. I got at least 30 more minutes left in the stream. Okay, so now I'm on these keys for the foot, and I'm keying that foot onto the base. So I've got this one, that's the larger one, that's the cutter. Dynamesh that. I'm going to use that as a Boolean later. Leave that off for now. And this piece is the key. So we'll merge this key down. And this key is going to be part of my foot. So I'll Dynamesh those 2 pieces together. And you can see, like, when I do that, this edge kind of goes from being crisp, clean, 2 separate pieces to slightly feathered. It's all one piece now. And then we're going to use the cutter on the base. Same as before. Turn off transparency mode when you want to see this. You got to have it visible for the Boolean render to work. And there we go. You could also inflate it. That's one thing I like to do, is go to my deformation inflate and inflate by like 1 or 2, just to have enough room for some epoxy and stuff there too. All right, so I'm going to say group is Dynamesh sub, merge down, and Dynamesh. And there we go. So now our base is almost ready. We can choose to hollow out our base, and what that'll do is it'll save on material cost. But what I've learned is when you hollow it out, your base, this base isn't going to use that much material. If I do hollow it out completely, my weight will be off because I want my base to be heavy. So in this case, I'll leave the base solid. I'm going to go to Rgb, fill object, and in order to prep it for printing, we've already Dynamesh. So what I'll do is go to my decimation master, pre-process current, decimate, and then the base is good. All right, we got a question from Facebook. Stanimir George Lev is saying, I don't understand why this piece is down under his leg. What is the idea of this? All right, I'll show you. We're going to be 3D printing this object, which means it's going to go from being digital to being a real physical thing. It's going to go from the screen to being a physical object. And when it's becoming physical, you have to think about balance. You have to think about weight. You have to think about engineering, making sure this won't fall off. That's why we're adding the key at the bottom. So if I decimate this now, we're about 311,000. We don't even need that much. Let's take it down to 10. 155K, and we don't really lose any detail. So yeah, that's good. And we can fill this object with the color. Now this piece is ready to go. This piece is ready to print. And hope that made sense, Stanimir. What we're doing is, when we print this, as a physical object, we want it to be in there. We want it to be glued and epoxied in place, and we want to make sure that this piece isn't going to topple over, because the cape looks pretty heavy, you know. If the cape is that big, we want to make sure we've got a big, deep key going into the base, and the base being solid and heavy. So this is like a solid unit. It's not going to topple. All right, so we're done with that. The legs look good. I don't need to worry about them right now. I could slice here at the waist, but I don't feel like I need to. It looks pretty good. I can start moving up, and let's do the hat. So the hat's pretty straightforward. It's the same kind of thing. We'll press H to go into our H polish brush, and just tap that right there. Oh, H did not do anything. My hotkeys aren't working. All right, I have to fix some things, but that's fine. We'll do it later. I'm going to go back into my brush, add the tapered square right there. Move it over. And check our transparency. So that should work. This will basically just let the hat key into place. And we don't need this key to be that big or strong, because it's not a weight-bearing key. It's just, to keep it in place. There we go. All right, so there's the key for there. I'm going to do the same thing, split unmasked points, auto groups, group split. We're going to find which one's the cutter, this one's the key. Merge those two pieces together. Dynamesh those pieces together. Make sure it's all the same color. So that's the hat, and then the cutter will actually duplicate the hat. We'll inflate the cutter just a smidge. Maybe another smidge. And we're going to actually use the whole hat with this cutter as part of it, as the cutter. So I'm going to group the whole thing, color it like red or something so we're aware of it clearly. We'll make that a cutter. Group as Dynamesh sub under our body. And there you can see that hat is going to cut out of that head. And we can even see where it's intersecting with the cape. There's a little bit of cape action up against the hat, which is good for us as a reminder to say, hey, no, we got to move the cape. And the arm too. There, the cape's intersecting with the head. These little things you have to be aware of. That's cool. We'll get to that in a second. But the hat, is that simple. We're just going to have it key into place, and he's going to lose his brain, and the brain's going to go in the hat. How cartoony. Okay, so the body's good. We'll Dynamesh the body just to make it ready. The hat's good. We'll Dynamesh the hat just to make it ready. You can see that it's working. Group it as Dynamesh sub, merge down, and then cut away. All right, so there we go. The head is now brainless, but then there we go. The hat is a solid piece and it goes into place. And we can clean up the hat a little bit. And when I do this, I want to make sure that my brush mask, auto masking, back face masking is on. We want to turn it on when we press smooth so that I can smooth just this side of it without worrying about smoothing the back side of the hat. Just to clean it up a bit. It's not doing much because we've got a more resolution, so I'm going to switch to my superpower brush here, the smooth, stronger. So this is hidden inside Lightbox, and it's very powerful. Just make sure you do the same thing. You got to go under, hold shift, and then turn on back face masking. Because now I can smooth all of this. These details I don't need at the bottom. I'm gonna fix my hotkey so my H polish brush works again. It's a really useful brush. I use it all the time. Just tapping the bottom of the hat to get rid of any unnecessary detail down there. All right, it's looking pretty clean. And it's really up to how much of a perfectionist you want to be. You can keep hitting this stuff as long as you need. Could also turn off the back face masking and just do a little bit of a little hit here and there. Back face masking is only really important for when I'm getting close to the center. I don't want to affect that. All right. There we go. And done. All right, same thing as before. I'm going to go to my damp standard tool and I'm going to make this crease a little bit stronger. When you're printing, details tend to get washed out. So you want to push those details deeper, make those crevices deeper. Also, pull out. There, I'm using the damp standard brush, holding my Alt key, or you can just change it from Z sub to Z add to add a little bit of a ledge. And this will make sure that that detail will read when you print it. It's all about reading. Detail reading. There we go. All right. I'm going to go back to my regular smooth because smooth stronger is way too strong. Just tap. Cool. All right, hat's good. So we're going to now do the same thing we did before. Dynamesh it, Z plugin, pre-process current. It's pre-processing. And then we'll decimate current. Now 10% is a bit too low on this. It takes it down too much. We'll make it 25%. And we could leave it relatively high. Nah, maybe 20%. And fill object. So there we go. And now the hat's done. So now we've got the hat and the base, the easiest parts, keyed off, separate, sliced, they're done. So I could actually take them both and turn them off. This is the part that's remaining to be keyed. Don't know if we can finish it in this stream, but we can start. What we want to do is figure out how we're going to split this mesh right at the cape and at the neck. I'm going to go to this body. I'm going to reinforce some of these points. And what I'll do is something subtle. I'll just create a little bit of a ledge over here. So this piece is going to key in. Same thing over here. Create a little bit of a ledge. And this kind of thing becomes second nature to you when you do it enough times. When you get your own 3D printer, when you start prepping stuff to key more often, it'll actually change your sculpting too. You'll sculpt with that stuff in mind. There you go. All right, so what I want to do now is basically have this head keyed off from the rest of the body and the cape. Or I could merge this part into the cape and just do a really simple key around the neck. That might be a better bet, just to keep it all simple and clean. But then I'll still need to separate the cape and the collar somewhere over here. Which, you can't completely hide every single seam. It's just the nature of the game. I'm going to switch to my Move Topological. Adjust these cheeks just a little bit, so they're going to give enough space there. Decisions. I think whenever possible, you should opt for simplicity. And in this case, it's going to look cleaner to have the cape and this be merged together. Now, it'll be too tough. All right, I'm going to just do it like this, like I've got it colored. I'm going to go to my color now with my standard brush and just really double down on that, refine it. Can even go to my mask tool. This point always comes before I'm ready for it. The having to merge everything together in order to start doing this keying of parts. And this is a bit of a complex part. It's not something that we could use a simple keying brush for. This is going to need some custom keying work done to it. So I'm going in and refining that poly paint, just really tightening it up a bit, because we're going to group by poly paint once we have cleaned up the poly paint a bit more. There we go. All right, it's looking as clean as we're gonna get it. We're gonna hide that seam, so only the smallest bit of it is visible. All right, now we're ready because the poly paints are all very clearly different. We can first save the scene. And I'll actually version up just in case. Let's call this DD2, Darkwing Duck 2. I hope they bring this back. It was such a fun series. All right, so I'm going to merge now the cape and the body together. This area could use a little bit more love on the cape. Just try to mask that off. We'll lift it back on up. There we go, just hide that collar in there a bit better. Sleeve collar, I guess. Okay, so now I'm going to Dynamesh all of this together. So the cape and the body and the head will all become one piece. So let's go ahead and do it. I'm going to duplicate my mesh just in case to keep a backup. And I'll go to Dynamesh, where 600 was the magic number, and click Dynamesh. All right, all of it is now one mesh, and now we're going to do this thing called polygroups, group by color from polypaint. So it's going to think about it, and hopefully it'll only do just the 3 groups. Let's test it out. All right, so we need to increase our polypaint group by color strength. It's the tolerance, I guess. Right now it's really low. It's 0.1. Let's change it to 0.3 and then do from polypaint again. I don't know why it won't separate the head and the body. There we go. Auto groups that just so it's separate pieces. There we go. So now we've got the body as its own polygroup. We've got the head as its own polygroup. And we've got the cape, the left side and the right side as their own polygroup. And that's good, because now we can start splitting. So let's see. Let's make sure there's no other groups. Yep, that's it. We only have the 4 groups. So now we can go to Subtool, Split, Group Split. Okay. And it should create 4 new pieces for us. So we'll call this Cape Right. We'll call this part Cape Left. This will be the head, so we'll call it Head. And this will be the body. And now we're going to Dynamesh to close this body up. And it's not going to be perfect. It's going to still have a little bit of an internal slope thing. So we're going to have to come back and resculpt some stuff to make it fit better. That's all part of the game. Dynamesh this piece. Thinking hard. There we go. And there's weird stuff, but not too worried about it just yet. There we go. Let's do the head. Fill that in. And lastly, this side of the cape. Alright, we've got some problem areas here where we can see a lot of holes in the mesh. So we're going to inflate all of those and make sure that there's enough thickness here. This is actually a good test for the wall thickness feature that they just added in ZBrush 2020. So I'm going to need to inflate all of that to make sure there's enough wall thickness for it to print. So these are the kind of standard issues you run into when printing. If a model kind of has intersecting surfaces, meaning a part that's going through itself, that part will just get destroyed. And you need to come in and inflate and fix it. So there's probably at least a few more hours of cleanup left on this model just to make it completely printable. I'll need to come in here and get the creases working right and kind of interlocking with each other. But we did the first important step, which is to pop everything off and separate it into its own groups and pieces. And we'll have to figure out a way to key this cape along in the middle a little bit as well. So the easiest way to do this is start by picking a place, say either the body or the head, and say this is the base ground plane for it. We can do that with the head because it's a bit simpler. We can go to something like Insert Sphere. Insert something like that there. Move it up. Maybe scale it down a bit. It's a massive sphere. And split unmasked points. Turn off solo. We'll have only our head and this sphere on. You can kind of sculpt it in place so we can like fill up that edge completely.